Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel, Greeting Star. I'm glad you could join me. Today we're going to be making this cute card. It's a Valentine's Day card, and you can see that we're going to be using this Stampendous stamp set. It's really cute. It's called Spring Short Stack by Stampendous. You can go to stampendous.com to find it and just search for Spring Short Stack. And I've got here my acrylic block. This is a Martha Stewart acrylic block, and I've put my little stamps on it where I want them, and I've got my Memento Tuxedo black ink, which I'm going to use to stamp the image with, because I'm going to be coloring this with Spectrum Noir alcohol markers, and this ink will not bleed or run when I use the alcohol markers with it. So that's why I'm using that. I'm going to stamp this down in the corner of my card base, actually my front panel. And I'm using this green tool here, this plastic tool. It's called a Stamp-A-Majig. It's going to help me. Ended up not needing it, but if you want to stamp an image twice, it helps you to align the image so it's precise and exact and you don't have any uneven images. And then I'm stamping the arms with this little cube here. And one of the things that also I wanted to tell you was you'll notice that there are lines on the paper in the background. I was going to use those lines, but later I decided to erase them. Here I'm using a die. This is a Spellbinders Nestabilities circle die, and I'm using it to help me draw an umbrella because I didn't have an umbrella stamp. So after I just traced the inside of that die to create a half circle, and then I used a ruler to draw two lines on the inside of the half circle, and then I connected those two lines on the bottom with like upside down or frowny faces, I guess you could call it, to create the bottom of the umbrella. And then I just freehanded the umbrella handle there. The ink that I used to trace the pencil line for the umbrella was a Faber-Castell marker. It's got India ink inside of it, which is permanent, and it will also not run when I use the Spectrum Noir alcohol markers to color this. Now, you can see here that I decided to erase those guidelines. That's where I was going to put my hearts. The hearts are going to look like rain falling, but I decided to erase it because the ink I'm using is a dye ink and it's transparent. So when I stamp it, you'll be able to see that pencil line through it, and unfortunately you can't erase it once you use the ink. So I decided not to do that. So I erased the guidelines, and I'm using Memento Rosebud ink here to do the hearts. Now I didn't have I didn't want to use a heart stamp, or the ones I had I didn't like, so I decided to take a piece of transparency and use my paper punch, and I punched the heart in the transparency. So I just basically made my own heart stencil, and I'm using a little finger dauber there, and what I'm doing is just going down in trying to keep it as straight as I can, a line to make the hearts here. And when I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and do this all the way down the page and all across the page. And when I'm done with that, I will color. I'm going to add some shine and shimmer to these hearts with a Wink of Stella clear pen. It's like a glitter pen. It actually has a brush tip, and it's by Kuretake. It's a Zig Wink of Stella pen or marker, and you can find those online or in a craft store. So you can see here that I'm just going down with my little handmade stencil here with all of these hearts, trying to keep it as straight as I can. And one of the things I'm doing is the first one, I sort of offset the second line a little bit so it looks a little bit more natural, like rain's falling, instead of every single one being lined up. And you'll also notice that I went off the page a little bit, so you don't have a complete heart at the very beginning at the top of the second line, and also at the bottom there. That makes it look a little more natural as well. And I used a piece of 3M tape to tape the front panel down to hold it steady while I was using this stencil here. And you can see that I reposition that tape and put it where I needed it as I'm moving along. Now I'm going to color with my Spectrum Noir markers. These are the citrus yellow 1, 2, and 3. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down the first color, which is the lightest color, all over the umbrella. This is the number 1. And once I have the paper fairly saturated with that, I'm going to go ahead and put down where I want my shading. So first I'm coloring this whole image in with a number 1, and what I've done here is I've just turned my pen around so that I can use the broader tip to color that larger area in. It's a little bit quicker that way instead of using the fine point tip. Then I'm going to take my darkest color, the C3, and I'm going to put a shadow on the base of the umbrella, right there on the bottom of it where those upside down U's are, whatever you want to call the bottom of that. And then once I'm done, and a little bit up the side, once I'm done with that, I'm going to go over that with a C2 to blend it in with the C1, and you'll see that in just a second. So I'm coloring, trying to blend the C3 and the C1 with the C2 as a middle barrier there, so that way it looks a little more natural instead of having such a sharp line to define it. And then I'm going to color the little ducky using the same colors. I think I decided to go back and add some more shading to make it look more distinct there at the bottom. So this way my light source is coming from the top right hand corner. And that's why I decided to make it shaded on the bottom. I'm not an artist or anything, but this is what I decided to do. I think it turned out really nice. I like the way the shading looks on the umbrella. It looks like the sun shining on the top of it. And then again, I'm going to color the little ducky with the same yellow colors, the citrus yellow 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to add shading just around the outside of his face after I'm done coloring him in. So here I am just adding the shading around the edges of the face with the C2. I'm sorry, the C3. And then I'm going to take the C2 to help blend that darker into the lighter. And I might even go back and put down another layer of dark. I'm not sure. Oh no, what I did is I used the orange one, the OR1, to color in the little beak. So I'll have an orange beak. And I'm going to do the same thing with his little legs there. I'm going to use first I think I used the C1 or C2 to color in his legs, and then I go over that with the OR1. So that way his legs and his beak look orange. I kind of sped up the tape here a little bit as it was going by a little slow. Now I'm going to go back and color his little arms again, and these are really small, so I just put a little bit of shading on the bottom there. And tried to blend it a little bit with the C2. And then I decided to color his little jacket. I was going to use pink as well to match the hearts. So I've got I believe this is PL 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to color with the PL 1 all over first. So that's my lightest color. I'm going to put that down first to make sure my paper's saturated pretty well. And then once that first layer is put down, I'll go back and add my shading with my darkest color, PL3. And I'm just going to go around the edges with that. And then I'm going to go down to my PL2 to blend between the 1 and the 3. Now what I did is I purchased the Spectrum Noir set from HSN, so I got the whole set of the I think it was the 72 markers, and then I ordered the additional pens. There's 4 more packs that you can get that come in a set of 24, and I ordered I think I only ordered 3 of those, and that's how I'm getting some of these colors, the 1s, the 2s, and the 3s. And then I forgot to color the little duckie's belly. There's a tiny piece that's coming through there. I think I go back and color that later, but I'm using again that Faber-Castell marker. This one has a fine tip just to draw the little motion lines between the hearts to give the idea, to convey the motion of the hearts falling. And now I'm going to use this strip of cardstock to create a sentiment or a greeting for my card. And I'm going to freehand this greeting instead of using a stamp, a sentiment stamp, because I wanted to say something that was unique. I'm going to say, "Let love reign." And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use 2 black markers, one with a fine tip and one with a bold tip, and 2 pink markers, one again also with a fine tip and one with a bold tip. The reason I'm going to do this is because first I'm going to pen the letters, and then I'm going to go back and add little dots on the edges or corners of all those letters, and that way it'll make it look a little more neat. And I'm using the pink for the word love, let love, and then I'm going to write the word reign. And this is like a king reigns, let love reign. And on the inside I'm going to write in your hearts on Valentine's Day or something like that. But now that I have the words written, I'm going back with the bold tip and I'm adding those little dots to the ends of each letter to make it look a little neater. And if you don't like dots, you can use lines and create like a serif. You can be creative and add hearts at the end instead of dots if you wanted to. Just be creative and do what you want. I like doing this because you really don't have to have extremely neat handwriting if you just write slowly and then use a bolder tip to add some kind of a point or a line, any kind of decorative edge to the letters. They look a lot neater. Now what I'm doing is cutting off the excess paper that I don't need here, and I didn't get it very straight, so I go back with the scissors to make it straight, and then I cut off the excess here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create like a little ribbon effect by cutting out like a V on either end. So what I'm drawing is a little dot in the middle of each of the ends, and then I'm going to cut from one edge to the dot and then go around to the other edge and cut to the dot again, and that creates my little banner. You'll see that when this little triangle is cut out, it looks like a little banner. And what I'm going to do when I'm done with that is I'm going to pop this up I'm not going to just adhere it flat to the front of the card. I'm going to pop it up with some foam squares, the adhesive, the dimensional adhesive that I have. But first I'm going around the edges with this pink to help the tag kind of stand out. And you can do this with anything that you want to pop up on the card. It's a good idea to define the edges with either a black marker or a color that matches. Now this is the Wink of Stella marker that I was talking to you about earlier, and what this does is just add a little bit of glitter and shine to all of the hearts on the card to make it a little more attractive. So there we go. I hope you can see that shine there in the video. So now I'm going to go ahead and find my adhesive. I think what I'm doing here is just adding some details that I missed. Yep, I'm going over the eyes, making them look dark. Sometimes when you color over things, it dulls the image. So now I'm going to adhere this again with the square dimensional adhesive that I have. They're little square dots, but first I'm going to erase any extra pencil lines that were in the card. And this is the mat that I'm going to use. It's a piece of black cardstock. I'm going to put this on there, trying to get it straight so there's an even border all around the edge of the front panel. Now the front panel is the actual card base itself is going to be an A2, which is a 4 1/4 by 5 and 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Yeah, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So then you just subtract 1/4 inch from those measurements to get your black cardstock, and then you subtract another 1/4 inch from the black cardstock to get your front panel. And that way you have a 1/4 inch mat and a 1/4 inch for the card base for the bottom. Here is this dimensional adhesive that I kept mentioning. Finally got around to doing it. You can see here that I'm putting about 4 squares, so that way it's pretty stable on the card. And it says, "Let love reign, ... Again, the word reign, like a king would reign. It's a play on words. And then I'm going to again use my 2 black markers, the fine tip and the bold tip, to write the greeting on the inside of the card. I'm going to say, "In your heart, this Valentine's Day." And I'm going to go back with my bold pen to put the little dots on the ends of all of the letters. One of the things that helps when you're doing handwriting on your own, if you're printing, not with cursive, but if you're printing, always start writing your letters from the top and go down. Never start from the bottom and go up. That'll help you draw a little bit neater letter. And then also always try to make your capital letters twice the size of your lowercase letters, or the lowercase letters half the size of your capital letters. Then I'm using a heat gun here to make sure that my ink is dry so that when I close it I don't end up getting it on the front inside of the card. So there's the card. Thank you for joining me today, and please feel free to check out my blog at greetingstar.org. Also, I have a ebook that I've published about making cards for a beginner, and that's on Amazon.com. It's called Illustrated Card Making for Beginners by Greeting Star. Thanks so much, and have a great day, and I hope you'll check those out.